I'm Makaela. I'm a student at Central Michigan University, and I'm a part of Chi Alpha, and I've been coming to Thrive for about 3 years now, and I love this place. It's my home and it's my family, and I just want to spend some time sharing my story with you about who I am and where I come from and how Jesus is using that. So, starting back when I was really little, I actually grew up in Mount Pleasant, and I had a mom and a dad who loved me a whole lot. I had a younger sister who I loved dearly. As I started to go through life, my dad began to battle with a prescription drug addiction, and that became a battle that the entire family witnessed. It turned into lots of different scary things, as far as like my dad would be passed out on the floor when we were ready to play games, or my sister and I would get hungry, so we'd look for dad and be like, hey, let's make lunch, but he was passed out face down on the bathroom floor, and sometimes we couldn't find him. It became really scary. One night he actually fell and hit his floor on the garage. Early mornings, my sister had trained herself to keep herself awake so she could check on him and make sure he was safe. And one night she had gone out and he fell and hit his head, and we ended up having to call for help. And that's when my mom was like, we're not doing this anymore. So she had left, and we weren't allowed to stay with my dad unless it was with supervised visits. And I have no doubt in my mind that my dad loved me and my sister and my mom so much, but addiction's a disease, and it did really nasty things to our entire family. While that was all happening, my mom met a man named Skip, who I grew to love dearly. He became the prominent father figure in my life, and by the time I was 12, in that November, he was killed in a motorcycle accident that took his life. And that was my first ever real glimpse into what death and tragedy looked like. And it was this man who was supposed to be teaching me about love, because there were things that my dad wasn't doing, and he was gone. He had left. Within the next 6 months, my dad's battle with addiction took a turn for the worst. He ended up going into a seizure and was left alone and wasn't found for a while. And once they found him, it was kind of too late. He was in a medically induced coma for the next several weeks, and the last time that I saw him, he could only move his eyes and breathe on his own, and he couldn't move any other part of his body. I remember singing to him and sitting next to him, and his breathing would slow down and he would calm down a little bit. So he knew I was there, but he wasn't really there. And then just a few weeks later, just after my 13th birthday, my dad passed away. So within 6 months, I had gone through major funerals, major tragedies in my life, and that had surrounded my family. So then I step into adolescence, and I step into being a middle schooler, and right away I don't know what's going on in my world. I don't know what's going on in this life. I don't love myself. I don't know how to love myself, because I haven't really been taught how to do that. And I begin to unsurprisingly develop chronic anxiety and depression. I had my first suicidal thoughts as a 13-year-old. It really only got worse from there. It began this long cycle of not liking who I was, and trying new medications, and trying to figure out things that worked, and it was crazy. And it's still a journey that I'm walking out, but it just kind of spiraled. I went through high school, some of the same things, just not knowing who I was or where I belonged in the world, not understanding what it was like to be loved. And then I got to college, still like crying in corners and not knowing why I'm crying, and feeling like I needed to be home, and not knowing what my purpose was or where my significance was in this world. Up until that point, I continued to experience death and loss and tragedy. I lost my grandpa, I lost 2 great-grandparents, I've lost 2 really close friends of mine. So it was like the entire world was against me, and everyone was leaving me, especially when I cared about them. But then up into my freshman year of college was when the Lord spoke to me for the first time. I remember so much about that day. It was so clear. It was the first time I was hearing the words that there was a Father in heaven who loved me and created me, and was gonna love me in ways that my earthly father never ever could. He was gonna love me in greater ways than this world ever could. So that night I gave my life to Jesus for the first time, and my whole world completely changed, and it's been blessings ever since then. Not to say that life hasn't gotten hard, because it definitely has at moments, but I have a hope now, and I know that I have a future and I have a purpose, and all of the messiness and all of the garbage and everything that's awful that God has walked me through and gotten me to where I am today, He's using to minister to people in specific situations that were just like mine. He's using me to speak encouragement and light and hope into people and in the places that I needed when I was younger. He's showing me how to do that for other people, and because Jesus loves me, I know that I have a hope. I have so much, and just know that your story matters and your story is important, and Jesus is going to use that no matter where you're at, no matter where you're going. He's looking to use you. He's walking you through the things that He's walking through because He wants to use you, and He's ready to use you, and your story matters.